Hey, Joe Zarzaur here with Dr. Evan Malone to talk today about disc herniation injuries from car wrecks. I didn't know this, but there's 40% of disc injuries happen in car wrecks each year. And Dr. Malone, before we get into the details about what these injuries are, we're talking about the spinal cord, correct? Mm-hmm. And we're talking about the vertebrae that protects the spinal cord.
Correct.
And the vertebrae that protects the spinal cord is made up of what, 33 bones? Is that right? 30-something bones?
Yeah, bones, and then between the bones are the discs.
Okay. So we're talking specifically about the discs that are between the bones. Now, the discs are not bones. Each disc separates a bone from another bone, mm-hmm. right?
Think of a jelly donut.
Right. And it's like a jelly donut because it has a center core that is made of some kind of different substance than the outside. The outside's a little stronger than the center core. Mm-hmm. And if you have a disc herniation, that means that disc is moving around because of trauma in this situation. And it is now pressing on the spinal cord or the facet joints, which are the sides of the spinal nerves coming out of the backbone. Is that right?
Correct. And so that center core is the nucleus. So when that leaves the column that it's supposed to live in, it's herniated out because of a rupture.
Okay. And are there more common areas for disc herniations in the neck and the low back along the spinal cord? Because I said earlier there's 33 discs, and the areas of the backbone are usually delineated by C, which is cervical, T, which is thoracic, and L, which is lumbar, and then they're numbered, right?
Correct.
The C, there's 7 in the cervical spine, correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
There's, I think, 5 in the, 6 in the, 5 to 6 in the lumbar spine, mm-hmm. and then how many are in the thoracic spine?
12.
12 in the middle.
Your sacral, so cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral.
And you've got C, I know we got some graphics that are going to be put up behind us shortly, but you've got C 1 through 7.
And 1 is at the base of the skull. And it's many times physicians will call it part of the skull, and then C2 is directly underneath it.
And the most common injuries or disc herniations or disc injuries that are associated with car wrecks are in the neck or the cervical region, mm-hmm. and the lumbar region, which is the L.
Correct.
All right.
So C5 and 6 and C6 and 7, which is kind of toward the base of your neck, not at the base of the skull, the base of the neck. And then L4, L5, and L5S1, which are at the base of your lower part of your spine, down by your tailbone.
Okay. And obviously there's different types of disc herniations. There's different variations. You can have a real bad one where it's pressing up against the spinal cord itself, right? Mm-hmm. You can have ones that are maybe just pushing a little bit in the area where the spinal cord is, right? But not directly pressing on it?
Yeah, it's just inflammation or invasion into a space that's supposed to be occupied by nothing but nerves, and all of a sudden there's less space for that nerve, so that's irritation. You can get symptoms just from that.
Okay. And so what happens, you tell me if I'm wrong here, but what happens is you go to the ER, and we've talked about this in numerous other videos. People with back and neck pain don't leave there typically with a diagnosis of a disc herniation.
Correct.
Even though they could have one.
Yes, and the only ones that are diagnosed in the ER you certainly don't want, because those are acute paralysis, like I'm talking like severing the spinal cord,
right.
severing nerve roots. So 99% of the time, that is not going to be the injury you have in a automobile.
You're going to go to the ER with neck pain and back pain. You're going to leave the ER with a cervical strain or whiplash or back strain diagnosis sheet. And you're going to think to yourself, well, the doctor said I'm fine. I just have some back and neck pain. And I'd say even the worst disc herniations, well, I'll take that back. Because the worst ones, like you said, are paralysis, right?
Yes.
Immediate. And then the others that are as bad in the ER would be ones where you can't feel, maybe it's not paralyzed, but you lost sensation in a leg or an arm. Mm-hmm. Those obviously would be a lot worse traumatic disc herniations. But everything that's short of some kind of paralysis or loss of sensation is going to be something that's diagnosed by another doctor at a different time via an MRI, correct?
Correct. And that's after the acute inflammation has gone down, you're still wondering, why do I hurt, or why is there some sort of unilateral, one arm, one leg, one side of my neck, or one shoulder? Why do I have symptoms there only?
Yep.
That's because you have a disc injury that is irritating the nerve supply to that part of the body.
And doctors don't give out MRIs just to anybody because it's really an expensive test, relatively speaking, right? Mm-hmm. And so they want to make sure that there's something going on with you that's not just swelling, for instance, mm-hmm. not just an acute injury to your neck, like you just got some muscle pain. They want to make sure it's something that's not really explainable by some innocuous kind of source or a temporary source. And once they figure that out, you're usually a month or two down the road from the wreck, they'll order this MRI to be done, and the MRI does a detailed picture of the soft tissues of your body, not just like an x-ray does the bones and bleeds, and the CT scan is big on that same stuff, but the MRI actually depicts the soft tissues really well, right?
The connective tissue, ligaments, other fibrous type bodies like the discs themselves, or the contents, the nucleus of the disc that is herniated out after it ruptures.
Okay. And then, of course, we get the MRI report, we get the MRI film. Dr. Malone looks at the film sometimes if necessary. We look at the report, and from that report, I pretty much can tell a client what their situation is as far as a legal case is concerned, and what their situation is from a medical standpoint in general, what they're going to need. Because the treatment, as we've talked about in other videos, from a disc herniation, from a car wreck, could range from therapy on one end to surgery on another end. And we handle all types of cases along that spectrum. But why is it most common for people to have these disc herniations in those certain places in the C-spine and the L-spine?
So that's the part of the spine that's prone to this herniation, just the way we're built. So the spine is not a straight column, although we're all standing up straight. The spine is S-shaped, so it's where those curves in the S are, where there's a little bit more load to bear, and also where that disc can literally slip out because there's less reinforcement. Also, it's the mechanism of injury too. So where your body's weight is focused when you have a sudden impact.
And what happens over time why do younger people tend to not get these injuries so easily, and older people, like myself, but people that are, let's say, over 30, over 40, why do they tend to have these disc injuries more often than folks that are younger?
So as we age, everything else in our body ages too, the connective tissue. So that outer ring of the disc, the fibrous part, is nice and strong and kind of flexible. And as you age, it dries out, and you'll see this on the reports a lot of times where it shows a desiccated disc or desiccated outer layer. That's not the injury, but that makes it more prone to injury, where it can tear, and then the contents of that disc can herniate out. So it's unfortunately part of, you could be the healthiest 50-year-old you know, or the healthiest 70-year-old you know, and you never had a problem. Well, your discs are still 70 years old.
And what signs and symptoms would a person have after a car wreck if they have a disc injury that's significant for or positive for a disc herniation, but they hadn't had an MRI yet? What kind of signs and symptoms should they be looking for to tell their doctor about?
So the concerning ones would be pain, weakness, numbness, or any kind of loss of motor function, strength, for instance, like grip strength or arm strength, and then change in range of motion. And when I say all those, it's with usually one-sided extremities. So it's my right arm or my left arm or my right leg. It's not both of my arms, generally.
Or my whole body hurts.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's usually going to be a unilateral, one-sided, and usually isolated to one extremity. So you're not going to say, it hurts when I move my right arm and my right leg, doc. You're not going to have a herniated disc that causes both of those. It's not to say you can't have injuries that cause that, but we're talking specifically about disc injuries. You're talking unilateral, and usually that pain, loss of sensation, loss of function, and grip strength, and all that.
Right. And then pain management doctors are the ones that typically diagnose these, because those are the ones here locally that end up treating a lot of these car wreck victims.
Or an orthopedist.
Or an orthopedist. Mm-hmm. And the MRI will be done usually at a different facility than where you see your doctor, because most of the doctors' practices don't have MRI machines in their facilities. Mm-hmm. So you'll do that, you'll get that report, then your doctor will tell you what the report says, and from that we can tell you what all is going on with your case and what all is probably going to happen with you medically. If you have questions, we're going to put some resource links underneath this video that you can click to. We're also going to obviously have, as we were talking, we showed you some pictures. We're going to have links to those still shots that you can see. If you have questions about a car wreck injury, specifically disc herniation injury from a car wreck, you can find us on the web at zarzaurlaw.com, or you can call us at 855-HIRE-JOE. Thank you.